Good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of the entire School of Music community at Ohio State, thank you for being part of this webinar. We are delighted to have you with us. And whether you are here with us live or viewing this webinar after the fact in an archive fashion, we're really grateful for your time today. Allow me to begin with the first of several introductions. I'd like to start with Dr. Eugenia Costa-Giomi, who is Professor of Music Education and currently serving as Interim Director of the Ohio State University School of Music. Welcome, Dr. Costa-Giomi.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's so nice to see so many of you interested in learning about what we are doing at the School of Music, and more importantly, what we are planning to do at the School of Music. This has been a challenging academic year, that's for sure, for all of us. But it has also been a very rewarding year in a strange way. I think that following times that are particularly difficult or tough, there is a sense of renewal or hope and opportunity that is very special, and that is what we are experiencing right now. I'm very glad that there are a couple of faculties and students who are willing to share their experiences for the last year at the School of Music, and also the outlook for the future. I'm really interested in listening to them and learning of what they have to say, and I'm sure that you do too. So I'm going to pass my little screen to Dr. Jones, who is going to facilitate this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Costa-Giomi. And let me share with you a little bit about the form of our webinar this afternoon. The form of the conversation will be in 4 sections. We'll begin with a conversation and an exploration about the recently concluded academic year, remarkable in every sense of the word, and what teaching and learning and music making has looked and felt like in the School of Music this past academic year. And in spite of the Herculean effort needed to navigate teaching and learning this past year, the resilient nature of our School of Music resulted in new explorations and initiatives and innovations for its futures. And hearing about some of those plans and ideas will constitute the second portion of our time together. And in anticipation of the most consequential change for the School of Music, we'll look to the opening of the Timashev Family Music Building in 2022. And during this part of the conversation, we'll hear about some of the remarkable possibilities that this new innovative home for the School of Music will provide. And our last section will be Q&A. For those of you who are joining us live, as you have heard, feel free to toss your questions into the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to as many of those questions as we can at the very end. Let me now continue with some introductions. We've garnered a distinguished quartet of students and faculty to serve as our panel for the program. And panelists, feel free to unmute yourself and say a hello once your introduction has been completed. Sadiyah Babatunde is pursuing both a Bachelor of Arts degree in music with an emphasis in vocal performance, as well as a Bachelor of Arts degree in marketing at Ohio State, and will be completing both of those degrees just 1 year from now in May of 2022. Welcome, Sadiyah.
Thank you, everyone. I'm glad to be here.
Next, I'd like you to meet Jocelyn Smallwood, who completed a Bachelor of Arts degree in International Studies in 2013, and then returned to our campus in 2017 to start a bachelor's degree in music education. Great news and great timing for us. She's graduating this very weekend with that bachelor's degree in music education. Welcome, Jocelyn.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much.
Dr. Katherine Rohrer is an associate professor at Ohio State, a gifted operatic mezzo-soprano. Dr. Rohrer has performed with opera companies worldwide. She joined the faculty at Ohio State in 2013 and currently serves as area head of voice within the School of Music. Welcome, Dr. Rohrer.
Hi, y'all, and it's so exciting to be here. Thank you for listening to us, and I look forward to our conversation today.
And lastly, but not leastly, Dr. Russel Mikkelson is professor and area head of conducting and ensembles in our School of Music. He additionally serves the university as Director of University Bands, a comprehensive program that annually includes more than 700 of our students on our campus. Welcome, Dr. Mikkelson.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're so happy that you're here and look forward to the conversation.
So let's begin our conversation here together. Part one of the conversation centers on the academic year completed just a mere 4 calendar days ago. And none of us have escaped the tremendously disruptive nature of the current pandemic, which in its worst manifestation has already claimed more than 500,000 lives in our own country and continues to take a similar toll around the world. While our focus for this conversation is upon the teaching and learning during the pandemic, we rightly need to name the devastation that this moment has brought and continues to bring to people in our own country and abroad. A lot of lives have been lost and a lot of people worldwide are still very much hurting. This year, Ohio State has strived to continue its mission as an institution of higher education while also implementing mitigation strategies to help keep the university's most precious resource, its people, safe. We are fortunate to have a university leadership who designed protocols for in-person interactions that have been overtly successful and enabled the work of the university to continue in spite of the pandemic. For musicians, particularly those who are vocalists and wind instrumentalists, the airborne transmission of the COVID-19 virus posed additional challenges. Many performing ensembles, our choirs, our bands, orchestras, jazz ensembles across the country simply stopped making music and in many cases canceled entire seasons and programs and performances. For those of us who chose to continue to make music in person, mitigation devices specifically designed for musicians, including musician face masks, covers for the bells of those instruments in the brass family, and even entire bags that a woodwind instrument would be placed in to capture any of the aerosol dispersion as those instruments were played became common in rehearsals around the country and in our own campus community. Given these extreme deviations from what we'll call our norm, our first topic has been what it's like to teach and to learn in the School of Music this past year. Let's go ahead and begin with our faculty panelists. Faculty, what have been some of the greatest challenges that you have faced in preparing for and delivering instruction this past academic year?
Well, in the midst of using all of these mitigation strategies, which have allowed us, frankly, to make music face-to-face, some of the challenges have been the fact that our rooms have had to be reduced in terms of the numbers that we can put in each room. So as far as the bands are concerned, we had 3 conducted rehearsal rooms with limitations of 12 persons, 15 persons, and 31 persons, when we would normally have 4 bands numbering almost 300 people. So that has created a huge challenge for us to overcome, but we were able to provide these experiences for our students, meaningful experiences, by utilizing chamber music, by utilizing unconducted chamber music, and these have created opportunities for our students to continue to perform even though we're not in the large kind of 60-person ensembles that we would ordinarily have.
And I would say from the vocal point of view, we were literally trying to find a voice when the world seemed muted. Through opportunity and options, it meant that suddenly our students were having to sing in their houses. It meant trying to negotiate Wi-Fi when their sisters or brothers or their parents had to go online, and finding a place where they could even practice when the dog wasn't barking. And while that was difficult, it was an opportunity, I think, for us to really get an insight into our students' lives beyond the classroom. We got to see the world that they were living in, and while it presented challenges, it also presented us, I think, with opportunity.
Thank you. So Sadiyah and Jocelyn, as students in the School of Music, what were some of your greatest challenges in learning and making music this past academic year?
I think for me, as someone who's spent 4 years in the School of Music, you get used to being in that community. And the issue with virtual instruction is that in a lot of ways you're removed from that community, so you're isolated. I think music making is such a communal thing, and we've made such a strong community in the School of Music that even when you're in your house and you're looking at people on a screen, that's not the same as being in person and making music together and running into people in the halls and having the chance to connect that way. So for me, it was the isolation, especially, and not being able to make music in the way that we normally are. And I think for any artist, that's a huge challenge to have that taken away from you. It's just such a huge part of who you are as a person, and having that happen and then having yourself removed from all the people who support you and do that with you was a big challenge as well. So I think that was really hard for me. I know Sadiyah has sort of similar thoughts as well.
Yes, I do. Thanks, Jocelyn. Just continuing with kind of the being in the virtual space as a vocalist, applied voice lessons were a huge challenge to tackle, both from the start of COVID to last semester through this semester, where we were having our voice lessons through Zoom. And one of the biggest problems was having the lag between you trying to sing for your teacher. It really just doesn't work out well. The compression of the sound, it's interesting. When I would be singing high notes, sometimes I would just completely cut out and my voice teacher's laughing because he's like, Sadiyah, can you sing that again? Because I didn't hear that. And it's like, I'll try 3 times and it's like, fourth time we got it. So just having that, and also not having an accompanist. A huge part of singing is being able to collaborate with a collaborative accompanist, and not being able to do that due to COVID restrictions is presented us with having to sing with recordings. So instead of us leading and the accompanist following, it was us following the tracks, which is very completely opposite. It was a challenge that we had to adjust to, because that goes for everything that we were doing in any type of virtual performance that we were given. We were having to readjust to what we have been learned, what we've been trying to do, and the whole point of kind of collaborating with somebody else.
A tremendous amount of relearning and pivoting and adjusting, it sounds like, constantly in play. I wonder for Drs. Rohrer and Mikkelson, the teaching virtually component. We've heard from both Sadiyah and Jocelyn about what it's like on the learning end of that dimension, that side of the computer. What's it like, and what's it been like to prepare for teaching, delivering instruction on your side of the computer?
Right. So I think what was interesting from my point of view is that I didn't really have a virtual life prior to COVID. I didn't have a large Facebook or Twitter or any kind of digital life in the same way that my students daily communicate, respond, and play out. They have an entire world digitally that they utilize that I was really unaware of. And so this was an opportunity, one, for me to learn a medium in which they are very versed, but also for them to see if some of the interactions that we had in class could then optimize those other interactions online. How you set up your background, where do you look on the camera when you want to communicate, all of those things became really important. And so some of the stage techniques that we had been talking about in person had opportunities virtually, but vice versa. I was learning an entire language. I think the other hardship that came into play was finding means and ways in which to offer performance opportunities. The big question is, does art exist without any interaction from an audience? And I know Sadiyah did an amazing recital, and it felt anticlimactic because there was no audience, and she was masked. And so she had to implement communication skills beyond what we usually think about. And so figuring out how do we recreate those interactions, whether it's through YouTube comments or through doing, some kind of clapping, something to have engagement so that we can make art. And I think that has transitioned. I see no reason why online instruction of some sort won't continue as a component of my teaching. Will it replace the interactions I have with my students? Oh, no, sir. But what I think this offers is that if Sadiyah runs to Germany and does a fest and thinks, you know, this sound in my voice, or I did this performance, you know, Dr. Rohrer, Dr. Blosser, can you look at it and we can maybe meet? The opportunities for digital expertise to be anywhere in the world, whether it's in our guest speakers or with me being able to help on the fly, on a phone, wherever, I think has really changed the way I look at my longevity as an instructor.
Yes, thank you. And I would like to just piggyback a bit on what Sadiyah was saying about the latency issues that occur when you're teaching music over Zoom. So I'm a conducting teacher. I work mostly with graduate conducting students. And the idea of having a graduate conducting student conduct to a recording or even sing themselves is really problematic over Zoom. We solved that issue by having them conduct to a recording or by conducting and singing to a video. And then we reviewed the video during the lesson, which was a way around what we were trying to accomplish. So the syncing of movement and sound was really the issue. And then we would share digital copies of the score as we were discussing those scores, and we can share those through Zoom. So that worked really well, and we all kind of got really good at the intricacies of Zoom. Certainly more difficult to physically demonstrate aspects of conducting over Zoom, but we were able to, I think, even navigate those. I would say that I ran into one interesting situation where I was teaching my seminar class, where I actually needed a VCR. And I had, because the documentary that I had on Aaron Copland that I wanted to show, that's the only format that it exists. So we actually met in person for that particular seminar in order to conquer that little problem. But it's hard to believe that we needed old technology in this world. But ultimately, I was grateful for the technology to be able to continue to teach, to be able to continue to interact in these ways and keep our students and our faculty safe. So for that, I am grateful.
Thank you, Dr. Mikkelson. So Jocelyn and Sadiyah, Dr. Rohrer was mentioning a bit ago that this technology that you have just come into for your generation, which is a little bit like breathing, was perhaps something a bit more at your disposal than perhaps those of us who are farther down the road in that regard. I suspect, however, that there was, and Sadiyah, you actually alluded to this a bit, that there was a bit of a learning curve. In particular, what's it been like for you to adjust to making music virtually?
So making music virtually, and I think there was a lot of audio engineering when it came to not only presenting in studio where we had to record ourselves singing and then sharing it with our fellow students in studio and reflecting on that, but also in the chorale ensemble, we had to, make videos ourselves and then pass that off to somebody else to audio engineer and put that together. And so for this perspective of a choir and what that means to be together singing side by side, you lose that, as Jocelyn was saying, that loss of kind of community. But I think even then we found a way through individual work, when seeing the final product of what we've done, what we've come together, we see like, wow, we did that. And that's going to be something that we can come back and look at. So even though we don't have these huge choir concerts together, that is something, a physical something that we can look back and remember and cherish as a success together as a group.
Excellent.
Sorry, not to jump on that, but I think also Jocelyn said said something about this, and I think it's an important and may lead us into the rest of the conversation, which is about community. And this, so much when we're recruiting and when we're talking about new students, and even when I got to hear Jocelyn talk at our auditions, they talk so much about the music school being a small family in a large university. And Sadiyah, you're talking about being an individual recording and then having it blossom into a performance that's then virtual. And I think that certainly our COVID interactions, whether it's the 15 people in one rehearsal space that's then added in chamber music and propelled forward, or individual lessons, or a video being added to a bunch of other videos, this idea of the one in many was a huge theme, that it could get lost in the gallery of pictures, but at the end of the day, we were still individual boxes that needed to be validated and instructed. And I do think that we've done the best we can with that.
Oh, without question, having witnessed this as a member of the faculty here in the School of Music this year, this sense of triumph and this sense of finding the half full part of the glass has been palpable this year, I think, for many of us. As a matter of fact, let me ask this to actually all of you. And perhaps what we can do is start with our students first here in terms of an answer. But have there been, you've alluded to some joys, some takeaways, some things that will live, finding in essence the silver lining, if you will, some positive moments in the midst of all of these challenges. If you had to share one or two of those with us, what have been the joys of having to make music and to exist and learn and teach virtually?
I think for me, and I'm lucky in some respects that I'm a wind instrumentalist, so we got to do a little bit more live performance wise than the choirs did. And I think one of the things that happened when everything stopped in March, I remember the Wind Symphony, we played a concert in February and it was great, and then that was it, and we were just done. And so in August, when we got to come in and sit down and make music together, it was really different. We were spread out, and I had a cover on my tuba, and Dr. Mikkelson was halfway across the room, and he was wearing a microphone. But we all got to sit there for 45 minutes, and it almost felt normal. We got to pretend for 45 minutes that we're just here and we're making music, and that's the only thing we need to worry about. And that was such a blessing in the middle of such an unprecedented and crazy time. And I think, if there's one good thing that has come out of it, we all had to stop making music together. And I know, at least for me, I was not surprised, but impacted by how much that affected me. And so to get to go back in August and sit down and actually do that again, and to get to teach a little bit as well, in being an education student, getting to go teach in person a little bit as well was super refreshing. And I think drove home, how important that actually is.
Honestly, there was quite a few joys, like given everything that's going on, I can name so much. Dr. Rohrer alluded to one of the things. I've had my junior recital this semester, and even though there wasn't an audience, just being able to be there with my pianist, my professor was in the audience, nobody else was there, just him. But it was still a joy to be up there on the stage in Hughes Auditorium singing. Our chorale videos that we've put together, being able to just, again, see those final products, and seeing between both my recital and the chorale videos, when posting those, people comment on whether you're posting on Facebook or Instagram or through the YouTube page, like seeing that physical, just like that physical applaud is something really awesome. It's like receiving a letter just feels so good. And that's kind of, you don't get that if you're there in person. Sure, somebody can come up and say good job, but I think people take more time in what they're going to say when they send you an email or comment something. So that's been really wonderful to read, and I'll be able to go back and read those and see what comments people have. This semester, we had been doing a tent concert series last semester, and we started that back up this half of the semester, the second half. And so vocalists and percussionists and musicians throughout all of the School of Music were able to perform outside via these like set up tents across campus. And so finally being able to perform and sing in person to an audience, that was, you know, as a performer, as a vocal performance major, that's something huge and something that we've lost in terms of opportunity. So to be able to have that opportunity again was just something I know we're all so thankful about. And then again, we started something called Sound Jack, and enabled us to have lessons in person where you have your professor in one room and you're singing in the other and your pianist in the other. So getting back to, again, some of that loss of in-person parts of the School of Music.
As I was thinking about and reflecting on the joys of this past year, I went all the way back to last summer when we were trying to navigate how we were going to deal with serving 150 instrumentalists in the bands, given the COVID restrictions that we would have in terms of space, coming up with mitigation strategies, listening to the research. And one of the great joys of this was working with an amazing and creative faculty who were all pulling the rope in the same direction, trying to solve these problems for our students so that when school began, we would be able to hit the ground running and be making music. And that was a remarkable 6 or 8 weeks that we spent together last summer trying to come up with the ways that we could make this work. And I was so grateful, continue to be grateful for my colleagues and for the graduate students that were assisting with those planning, and the incredible work of our students in implementing the plan. This resulted in the Wind Symphony being able to perform virtually at the OMEA. It resulted in 6 alumni sessions at the end of fall semester, where we invited 6 of our alumni back to share their journeys and how they have gotten to where they are professionally. That's something we ordinarily would never really take the time to do in our large ensemble time, but we had that opportunity last fall. We hosted composers. I know several of the bands and the instructors hosted composers virtually, which typically we would bring those people to campus. There would be a fairly substantial expense, but we were able to do that virtually and bring those composers into our rehearsals. And lastly, I would just say that the feeling that we are all supporting one another throughout this crisis was really a joy. The fact that students were supporting students, students were supporting faculty, faculty were supporting students, and faculty were supporting faculty. That's the definition. When we talk about a family at Ohio State, this is what we're talking about. And it was never so evident as it has been for the last 14 months or so. So those are my joys, and there are many more that I could share. But at this point, I will let Kat talk for a bit.
Sure. So I'm going to bring it back to this concept of family, because certainly I think our family has grown. We've now gone into our students' homes when they're, whether it's the apartments they're living in with their roommates or their homes with their parents. And so many of them have come to university, and they usually, in the more traditional sense, they learn their skill, and then they might get to do their junior or senior recital, and that's when their parents see their efforts. But now they're singing it on a weekly basis. They get to hear their lessons, they get to hear some of the sounds of the practicing that their students are doing. And one particular story came to mind. I have a junior, and she was doing her dress rehearsal for her junior recital, and her 15-year-old brother was there, and she finished and she saw that he was kind of tearing up, and she's like, "I don't understand why you're doing this. I sing around the house all the time." And he looked at her and he goes, "Not like that." And I thought it was really funny that, for many of them, we would have digital concerts, and it meant that they could join and hear their child or their sibling or their friend sing in a way that they wouldn't in normal circumstances, and then they could go back to lunch or do whatever they had to do. And so this idea of community involvement and how we can impact the world, and I know Sadiyah talked a little bit about those outdoor concerts. I remember sitting in very, very cold weather, wondering how in God's name the trombone player could play when it was that cold, and worrying that half of the language from my singer would be muted by the chattering of his teeth. But what I saw medical students and people coming out of the library, walking by those spaces and hearing live music. And for even the non-music community at the university, that became, I think, so significant. It became a beacon for better, a beacon that this is for now, keep listening, we're going to be planning for better and different, and we're ready to do that.
Some remarkable stories of resilience and of finding joy amidst some incredible challenges. As we now go ahead and shift to the second part of our conversation, I'm aware and mindful that we've had a lot of time in isolation this year, not just removed from one another physically, but time to be with our thoughts, time to ponder and to wonder and to dream. And in many cases, people have made some pretty sizable reprioritizations in their lives, both personally as well as professionally. And so I wonder if we could go to our student panelists here and have you share a little bit about whether or not that process has been alive in you at all. Has there been a reawakening, a reprioritization of what really matters to you and is important to you? And particularly, how might that influence your looking into your professional life? So Jocelyn, you're right on the doorstep of professional life as a music educator, and Sadiyah a year away. But has that sense of having time to reflect and to reprioritize influenced in ways your professional outlook, the things that matter to you as you move closer toward that part of your life?
Well, for me, we had Adrienne Danrich come in and speak with us. She's an Emmy winner, and something that she had said, it was about giving yourself your creative license. And I feel like when you're in the classrooms and you're doing your music theory and taking your keyboard, and you get so focused on like completing those courses, and that goes really for any degree, or you get so focused on kind of checking off the boxes that you kind of forget sometimes what you're really there for. And she talked about giving yourself your creative license. And after that, for me, that reprioritized like my own mindset and just in music making in general. So when I'm giving performances, when I'm doing virtual going forward, just having the mindset of this is about creating music, about sharing the messages, and and I think having that creative mindset going forward is just gonna help me communicate with people better, and just create more interest in the music that I am doing.
I think, and everyone has said this, it's been such an uncertain year. And I think in your fourth year of music school, but in education especially, there are just a lot of unknowns. I mean, in the fall, you don't know where you're going to be spending your spring, student teaching. We didn't know whether we would be student teaching in person in the fall even. And so for me, the thing that has sort of anchored me throughout that are a lot of the folks that I've met and interacted with at the School of Music. I mean, there are a lot of faculty, there are several faculty on this call right now who, when I have a problem, I immediately go to them and I, shoot them an email and I say, hey, I don't know what's going on. I need help. And they are there always without fail. And so I think, the past year being so challenging and it being one for me, at least with a lot of loss, sort of reprioritized how I think about relationships and building relationships and how important they are. And it just happened to be at a time where, I know I'm leaving one place and headed towards another. And I think the benefit of that is getting some perspective on how valuable those relationships are. And Professor Mike Smith was talking to me at one point, and I was telling him, you get comfortable at the School of Music, and then before you know it, they're kicking you out and they're telling you, hey, you gotta go. It's time to go get a job. And I was sort of lamenting that to him, and he said, you think this community is really great until you get out into the world and you realize that all of the people are now your colleagues, and that the world, you're not losing anyone. They're just becoming your colleagues, and you're gonna go meet even more people. And so I think it all hit at a good time, because it just regrounded me and sort of reminded me how lucky I am to have met the people I've met here, and that, leaving Ohio State isn't leaving them. I mean, I'll be sending emails and, calling Dr. Jones and Dr. Mikkelson for the rest of my career, asking them what to do. But, for me, that's been sort of an anchor point or a point of stability, is realizing those people are there for me.
Those are really lovely sentiments. And Jocelyn, I'll just mention, as a faculty member, and I know that I speak on behalf of Dr. Rohrer and Dr. Mikkelson, and actually all of our colleagues, that those moments in which we hear from former students, even with a question or just to say, hi, here's what's going on in our life, means so much to us. So please don't, either of you or any of you who may be watching this, shy away from remaining in touch with us. Thank you again, Sadiyah and Jocelyn, for those reflections. So to our faculty, this time to ponder and to reflect and reprioritize, I'm wondering if that has played itself out institutionally within the School of Music. Time to step back and take a look at how we operate, how we do things, how we're meeting the needs of our students, where things could be different. I'm wondering if you would share with us some perhaps new initiatives or new ideas or new ways of thinking about teaching music that might be on the cusp of happening next academic year, or maybe for the future, some things that have been a result of that same sense of reflection and time to think a bit more deeply than perhaps during the normal busyness of an academic year we otherwise wouldn't have had.
Yes, in some ways, getting back to a bit of normalcy looking forward is something that I think we're all excited about. And some of the programs and initiatives that some of which we've done before that will be coming back, I'm excited about. Our high school honor band weekend, we believe, is going to be able to come back, and to have 375 high school students on our campus over the course of Martin Luther King weekend in January is such a thrill anyway. But this year in particular, I suspect, is going to be a real celebration. And while we have done, well, one of the things that we've lost over the time of the pandemic has been the fact that we commission new works and we do premieres of new works. In fact, we were set to do a consortium premiere of John Mackey's in May, and then we lost that performance. One really exciting premiere that we have with the Wind Symphony that will be coming up, we're planning right now in the middle of November, is a commission of Pulitzer Prize winning composer Julia Wolfe. And if you're not familiar with her music, you need to be. She just wrote a piece for the New York Philharmonic called Fire in My Mouth, which is a stunning piece, even on a very first hearing with the New York Philharmonic and a children's choir and a women's choir. Just an incredibly engaging work, top to bottom. And she is writing her very first work for Wind Ensemble through the auspices of the Big Ten Band Directors Association and other organizations, including the United States Marine Band, that are helping to bring this consortium and premiere to fruition. But the OSU Wind Symphony will be able to actually perform the very first performance of her work. And we are planning right now to have her on campus. We're crossing our fingers that that will be able to happen, and engage not only with our students, but with the larger campus community as a woman who has become an extremely successful composer, and we would like to share that, her journey getting to that point, getting to the top of the mountain, so to speak, with everyone in our campus community, not only our musicians. So these are some of the things that I'm just terribly excited about happening this coming school year.
I'll talk about some of the things that are happening from our point of view. Certainly from my other applied faculty, there are numerous ensembles and some of our instrumental chamber ensembles. I know Cello Ohio is looking forward to doing a whole slew of new events coming up in the fall. So that's really exciting. We've just reconstructed a little bit of our singing health specialization and optimized our interactions with speech and language pathology and otolaryngology. And so it has, I think, ignited some real imagination and further collaborations with those teams. And we have more interest than ever. So I'm really excited about the direction that that's going. And then the other thing that we're looking forward to is the possible inclusion of new positions and new hires to allow for more cross-discipline thinking and objective thinking on some of our degree sheets and our curriculum. Specifically, how can we allow our students who are very limited on time and they have very full schedules to maybe optimize their opportunities to learn from other disciplines, giving Sadiyah an opportunity to take a musicology course in women and gender studies and politicizing music, things like that. So we're constantly engaging and trying to find more threads between each other and the university as a whole. There's quite a bit of talk between the music school and our medical and science partners about finding as many opportunities as we can to help them find the humanity in the sciences and the sciences in the humanity, and that vice versa. So there's minors being talked about, there's new courses that are being built, and I can only see that this is going to expand. And the more new students and new voices we have, the more informed we are about making those choices. If we've learned anything during this semester, it's to be adaptive and to improvise in the greatest way, improvise with forethought and good intentions and fundamentals and knowing what our kind of mission is. But improvisation isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I think it's been an opportunity for us to reevaluate our degree sheets and some of our curriculum to really make it reflect our students' needs.
Thank you for sharing that. I think we could probably have spent and devoted an entire hour just to new ways of thinking and some of the dreaming that has happened during this year in the space that has been provided. But in the interest of time, let's turn the corner and head into our final formal segment of this afternoon's conversation. It is likely the case that no single endeavor on College Road in the last 40 years has fostered so much excitement, enthusiasm, and downright giddiness with every School of Music faculty member, staff member, member of our administration, student, and alumnus than that which you are seeing on your screen right now. In the autumn of 2022, the Timashev Family Music Building will open its doors on campus as the new home for the School of Music at Ohio State. Ohio State alumnus Ratner Timashev and his wife, Angela Timashev, committed their charitable foundation to provide $17 million to the College of Arts and Sciences, the largest philanthropic contribution made by an individual or foundation in the college's history. Born in Russia, Timashev studied physics at the top science school in the nation, the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology, before coming to Ohio State as a graduate student in 1992. Equipped with modern performance and practice spaces and venues with the capacity to host world-class performers, visiting faculty, and free community-wide performances, the Timashev Family Music Building will be among the most acoustically and technologically advanced facilities in the nation upon its completion. This new facility, connecting to the existing Weigel Hall, will bring together all that happens in our School of Music under a single roofline. When asked to share insights about this generous gift, Ratner Timashev stated, and I quote, I will always be grateful for the opportunity Ohio State gave me to come over as a graduate student, which defined my career and my life. It is my privilege and honor to support Ohio State and its students who were all given the same great opportunity to become a Buckeye. And I can tell you, actually right out this window from my studio is the Timashev Music Building. It is taller by the day and more complete by the moment. I know that you've enjoyed just seeing some video footage of a construction, which actually now is several weeks old. The progress is just amazing what's happening across the way. So let's explore this. Since 1979, when Weigel Hall, new at the time, opened its door, the School of Music has lived in two separate buildings right across College Road from one another, Hughes Hall and Weigel Hall. And we're obviously, as you've heard, the Timashev Family Building is now going to tie into Weigel and bring us all under one roof. I'm curious to hear from our panelists. What promise does that single change bring to teaching and learning and music making for the future of our School of Music? I'm wondering if we could start with our students first. Sadiyah or Jocelyn, would one of you like to chime in on that?
Sure, I can go ahead and go first. I think one of the biggest things is going to be the opportunity for collaboration. I mean, with having everything under one roof, you're just going to have more awareness of what's going on around you. You're going to be bumping into people, hearing things that you didn't really hear because they were in two separate buildings. So I think that's going to be a huge spark for collaboration. Also, because we're all under one roof, we're going to have all of the studios in one building for the first time. And that'll be really awesome in terms of getting to know your peers, like just getting to know your peers in classes again, because we're all under this one roof.
I agree. And I think Sadiyah and I were talking last week about, we're both in our fourth year here, and it's been 2 years now, I think, since the building construction has started and since things have sort of inhibited our ability to just drop by and see a concert. You know, our first and second year, it was really common to walk out of Weigel and there's a concert and you pop in and you watch a choir, or you watch a jazz band or the orchestra or something. And that's been made more difficult by COVID, especially. And so when we were talking last week, we were both really excited just about the opportunity for, as Sadiyah said, everyone to be under one roof, but to have that ability to actually gather again, and to be involved in supporting, you know, your colleagues in their performances and have it be so easy. You know, it's not even, you don't even need to walk across the street anymore. You can be walking out of the building and there's no excuse to not go watch something. So, you know, we're on our way out, but I'm really excited for the people who are coming in to get to do that again.
Well, as a faculty member, I've been on the faculty since the fall of 1998. And to come together under one roof is really exciting. It's the current space in the three different buildings in which we are housed has inhibited the opportunity for faculty to come together just as people. And our new space will have a small faculty lounge, which will allow us to gather there, perhaps eat lunch together, have a short conversation between classes. This kind of thing has really not been able to happen. So I'm looking forward to those types of opportunities. The opportunity to easily access a lecture in musicology or in music theory on a topic that I might be interested in, or a master class by one of our woodwind specialists. The opportunity to observe and learn in those ways that as a faculty member, it's happening all around you, but you're not able to take advantage of it as easily. And I think that this new building is going to offer that. On a personal note, I went through the building about a week and a half ago, walked into the rehearsal room and just about started weeping at the sheer size and scope of that space. Our current largest rehearsal room is about 1,500 square feet. Our new rehearsal room will be almost 4,000 square feet. So finally, an appropriate sized and acoustically treated space for our ensembles to rehearse. We're very, very excited about what this new building is going to mean for all of our students and our faculty.
I think from my point of view, I've been able to sing around the world. And one of the things that always struck me is when there was new designs for buildings, whether it was New York City Ballet redesigning and Juilliard redesigning their buildings, or the Opera in Antwerp redesigning one of theirs. And one of the key aspects that they put into their buildings that we are making use of is windows. The simple option for anyone outside to be able to really get a glimpse into music making. This idea that we are a component and a derivative of our community, both that community that is at OSU and that community that is the greater Columbus area. And so I think it will I keep using the word optimize. It will just really allow us to kind of take away the curtain and perhaps reach out to students and community members and the public in a way that we haven't been able to do in the brick and mortar hard walls of Hughes Hall. Not that they're not going to be stable walls at this facility, but I think actually having light flow through the space and having the opportunity to really see what's going on in there is a massive metaphor that the university is investing in. That not only will this be an important space, but it's so important that we're not going to hide it. We're going to optimize it, and we want you to see where our real treasures are. And so that's exciting.
You know, Dr. Rohrer, that's actually a remarkable element of the design of these buildings. And the fact that the School of Music and much of the Arts District here is positioned under this outward facing posture really invites our community to come and be part. It's a great reminder that with Ratmir Timashev coming to us from another country, that this sense of being open and inviting all in, that the arts are for all people here in Columbus is really a beautiful symbolic gesture. It's going to be really enjoyable to watch that play out. And Jocelyn and Sadiyah, mindful of the fact that you will have moved on to your professional lives by the time we are fully into that space, I will be happy to buy you a cup of coffee in our cafe if you'll come back and just let me know. First cup of coffee is on me. We'll be happy to do that. We've got a question already in the chat, and this has been a common question, which is what's happening to Hughes Hall? And so while we are vacating it, it is not being torn down, which may give some of you sadness and some of you joy, perhaps. It's a beautiful building. As a matter of fact, it's where I'm hosting from here just today. And in case you were unaware, because I think sometimes history can kind of elude us, Royal D. Hughes, for whom Hughes Hall was named, when the university here formed a music department for the first time in 1925, there was one faculty member, and that person was Royal Hughes. He led the entire music department in here, and in a very short lifetime, he left this world barely in his mid-50s. He proceeded to put this, at that time, music department on the national map. So while we all at times like to think about some of the charm or character of Hughes Hall, it's named for really somebody to whom, or all of us in the School of Music, we are deeply indebted and connected through time and through history too in that regard. Time and change, as we call this webinar here, and before we get to Q&A from our attendees here, is it implies tradition, which of course for us here at Ohio State, traditions are very, very important. So knowing that the School of Music is going to be leaving Hughes Hall for the first time after calling it home for 73 years, and I marvel at how they were able to make all of this work in this space. I'm wondering if any of you would like to share some cherished good memories about good old Hughes Hall before we head to some time for Q&A. And perhaps let's start with faculty first, and we'll end with our students. So, what either of you have memories, things that you know already you're going to miss, perhaps the window air conditioning units or something to that effect?
That would not be one of the things that I'm going to miss, nor the fact that every time a semi would pull up to the stop sign outside Hughes Hall, the windows in my office would rattle. I will not miss that. but the memory in August of 1998, moving into the space that I continued to reside, and the number of people, the number of students in particular, but also the number of guests, the composers, the John Corleanos, the Krzysztof Pendereckis, the just incredibly famous and incredible leaders and composers that have visited that space over the course of that time is really remarkable. And finally, the pictures of Don McGuinness's band elbow to elbow on stage in Hughes Auditorium. That band must have been 90 plus, and somehow he was able to get them all on stage in that space. I just find that to be remarkable. So I will miss those aspects of Hughes Hall. But while we often talk about starving artists and not really worrying about the space, even starving artists deserve beautiful space in which to live and make music. And we're so excited to be across the street in the Timashev.
To admit that my time in Hughes has been more limited than Dr. Mikkelson. I mean, I'm aware of the several busted water pipes, drowning pianos. And I've always found it so interesting that I only have one outlet in my entire office, and that's always been the case. And so if I needed to plug in my computer, I had to unplug the microwave or the refrigerator. So I always coordinated my lunch with when I had to do emails to try and make sure that I had power to run one or the other. But that, you know, there is a kind of there's a legacy within those halls. They're imbued with music making and the tears of 1,000 applied lessons, and good and bad. And I think that you know, we feel that, and that comes to us as inspiration. I love walking into Hughes and seeing the date, and knowing that there has been a legacy there. That is always, I think, given me confidence to know that there is still a purpose and a place for us here at Ohio State. And daily I will walk up those stairs and honor that legacy.
How about for Jocelyn or Sadiyah? Do you have any memories that you will take with you from Hughes Hall?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I have sort of the funny ones. I think the joy of finding a room to practice in August that does have an air conditioning